Welcome back to the Purpose Over Profits podcast. I'm Jim Floyd, owner of Ascent Total Performance.
And I'm Jeremy Powers, owner of Powers Insurance Experts.
So today, we had the opportunity to go to a really great leadership conference last week called Live to Lead. So it's through Maximo Leadership, and one of our previous guests, Betsy Bills, was put it on for our local community. And so we both had the opportunity to go to it and take our teams with us as well. And so we thought this would be a great episode just to kind of like talk about what we learned and kind of review all the different things, because I think it was just a ton of great information.
Oh, absolutely. And I love how it happened, because ultimately it's kind of, we practice what we preach. We put ourselves in positions in our community to be around leaders. And in this situation, it was a new leader moved into the city, and where we were positioning ourselves is where these leaders were attracted to. And so ultimately it was a real cool opportunity to just see what we talk about come to life. And I'm so thankful because it's an event that I needed. Yeah, I'll be transparent. We are in a season in our industry to where we need all the smiles and and the cheering and the things that we can get to motivate ourselves to just continue fighting the good fight. And so what a great event. A lot of local leaders were there at this Live to Lead event. A lot of people that we know and care for. So it was just great. I mean, one thing I loved is to see you, and not only you, but your entire leadership team was there at the event. And that, to me, that is a business owner that values growth, because they're not just hearing it from you, they're hearing it, and you want that for them. And so I commend you, my friend, for bringing your team.
Well, thank you. I think it was just a well-received the whole day. And I think everybody really enjoyed it too. But that's something too, is like, so as we all grow in our leadership too, is you realize that it can't be you teaching everything and being a resource for everything too. And so being able to have those opportunities to go and learn from others can be a very, very impactful thing for your teams.
That's right. And I feel a little dumbfounded at the moment, but do you remember the name of the venue itself was? I know it was an M. I mean, I know it's related to M Vista.
It's part of that M family, but I'm not sure.
That's right. Okay. I was hoping.
But the venue is
M
great.
Garden. Okay. M Garden. Boom. There we go. I knew it would come to us from Daniel, myself. But I mean, if you are here local and you are looking at hosting an event, I think it's usually a wedding venue, things like that. But you've got the amazing food that they provide. But what a beautiful location.
It really was. I was really impressed. I'd never been there before. And it was a fantastic event space.
Very thankful.
The interior, the exterior, like the pond fountain thing in the back, and just a great environment overall.
And then Beach Loveland hooking us up with a coffee. You know, I mean, I was pumped and ready to go. Well, let's dive into it. I know that we each have a few things, and we don't want to take up more than 20, 25 minutes with our friends here that are listeners. Once again, thank you if you take in this podcast. We are so honored that we get to share this time with you. If you're driving somewhere, just wherever you're taking it in, we are excited for that. So let's go ahead and dive into really some of the big topics, some of the big things. So what was your first big takeaway from this event?
So I'm kind of looking at the whole speaker list, and I figured I'd just go down the list.
All right, let's roll.
So let's so our first, of course, we have Betsy doing the welcome, and she's just a great personality, great leader, and she really set the tone for the whole day. And all of our listeners, you would know just from hearing her on our podcast, just the energy she brings.
I wish I had that energy.
And the depth of knowledge that she has. So that set the tone. And it was like, this is going to be an awesome day just based off of that. And then we had our first keynote was the man. So John Maxwell.
What's crazy is he's so simple, but yet his actions speak louder than his words. And he has, like, when he says it, you're like, wow, like, I'm going to rethink that, because that's what I noticed in what people at the table said. Is like, nothing that he says is this crazy way out of left field. It's just, it's just the simplicity of it works, And so, I mean, I was, that was really one of my first times reading his books, which I'm a huge fan of several of his books, but just seeing him, and I'm like, dude, this guy is so calm, cool, and collected.
And I think the thing to echo with that is the concepts are simple. The execution's difficult. And so I think that's where, he makes it look really easy, because he's talking about these things and all that. It's more of, that's where we have to coach ourselves and rely on leaders that are going to be able to lead us for really helping us be able to implement the things
absolutely
in there too.
And we helped him. I mean, we'll take a little credit here. We gave him some ideas, helped him write his next book.
Yeah.
I mean, we just happened to throw a few things there. No, just playing. But if you hear his talk, you'll understand what I'm saying there. But ultimately, not to give away too much, but he talked about leadership, levels of leadership, and he considered it to very simplistic, high road, middle road, low road. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But what really hit me the most about his first talk out of his two was his passion for the next generation. How much it really means something to him that we would be leaders today that would create leaders tomorrow. And his passion for that, man, because he's easily at I'm not gonna say the end of his road, but I'm saying at the end of the day, he could try to pass this on and say, hey, that's someone else's problem. I'm gonna keep my mind focused on the people that are paying me all the money right now, and those are not teenagers. Okay. And so his passion for that really, it ignited a little fire within me to say, hey, what are you doing about that?
And you can see it too, just in the words he used and just his whole persona, that's a very authentic thing for him too. This is something he really, really does care about. So with what he was talking about with the roads of leadership and those different things. So we got a low, middle, and high road of leadership. And by no means do we intend to teach that or anything like that in this episode. But I think that if we can just focus on that concept of what high road leadership is, and just a quick synopsis, because I know there's a podcast fully dedicated to just that concept. That's right. that I would encourage all of our listeners to go listen to. So I think it's such an important thing to have, especially when you're a leader of an organization, or just how you lead yourself, of using that concept of that low, middle, high road.
That's right. And it's not that, a lot of times, if I'm just being transparent, when I go through this, I found myself a lot in my current situation in life in that middle road. And I don't think there's so much wrong with that, but obviously your goal is to get to that. If your goal is to be a high road leader, you just have to think differently. And when you think differently, you see the world differently. And I think that is, a glass half full kind of person is where we need to be in today's world, because it's easy to see how much is missing. But if you can focus on what's still there, man, that's a beautiful thing. And so it really hit me hard.
Yeah. And I think probably everybody in the audience, as they're going through that, we're thinking about, so where am I on this scale? And I'm sure there's some things I'm doing middle road, some things I'm doing that are a little bit more high road. And I think it's a really nice exercise to be able to go through as a leader, to really do a self-assessment of what are the things that I'm doing great and I just want to lean into more, and then what are the things that I need to do better.
That's right.
With that too, and with that intention of always wanting to be the high road in leadership. So I think one of the other things too with that is we might probably need to define like what high road leadership is. Based on what he was saying, because we've already talked about it for 5 minutes or so. Really hadn't talked about like what that actually means.
Sure.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, for the high road leadership, I mean, it's just really whenever you put others ahead of yourself, like you truthfully, like you don't, like it's not even what's in it for me. It's just what's in it for them. High road leadership is that you are willing to close the gap. For others instead of looking at what's in it for me. And so a lot of times I find myself, like I said, in that middle road where I'm looking out for both of us. And so, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but it's something completely different. I think that they were talking about there's businesses, maybe it was like Lululemon or something like that, but there's businesses and they literally, hey, Jim, what's your aspiration? Oh, it's to own a oh my goodness, yoga studio. I'm like Yu-Gi-Oh over here. Yoga. You probably see me playing that before you see me in a yoga studio. So I'm saying you want to own this like cool goat yoga studio in 3 years. Okay, well, when that happens, we're actually going to paste that. We're going to have a picture of you on our wall saying you accomplished your dream. That, I don't know, like he said, I don't know about all their other practices. I know, but that one thing is that, hey, we're a part of your story, but we understand that we're not the end. And I think that's a really neat thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that really gets to where we're starting to move into that transformational leadership of it becomes something where it's not about me. It's not about anybody else that's already in that leadership. It's about what am I doing to help those people and to help pull them up to help them get to that level of where they're operating at their highest potential.
That's right.
And that being the sole focus, and there's no other focus.
Absolutely.
And I think that really, you did a great definition of that, and that really kind of epitomizes, I think, what we should all strive to be. And that's a really tough thing.
That's it. Yeah. This might be a hard one to wrap up in 20 minutes because they're all so easy to dive into.
All right. So then that next speaker was this guy named Jeremy Powers. And
it was,
I don't know. That was
hey.
No, but I will say, so you did an awesome job.
I appreciate that.
And that was it was great getting to see you up on stage and you giving a little bit of your background and really I mean, you led extremely well into the next speaker, and just you could see your passion for what you do with that. And I think it was such. I mean, and every audience member was eyes glued on you.
I appreciate
the attention of everybody. So you did a great job.
I appreciate that. I tell you what, it was quite a moment whenever you get the lineup and she says, "Hey, I want you to open for every one of the live speakers that's going to be here today. You're going to set the foundation."
Yeah,
okay,
that's right.
Cool. Let's do that. And so it was a cool moment. But I went into that with my intention was not me. I needed to give a little bit of my backstory because Kendra Scott and I actually have a very similar story, except she's a billionaire and I'm right here. You know what I mean? And so her story has turned out extremely well, but I'm so thankful for where my story is right now. And so, but it was just to tie in a little bit with that personal story. But my goal was not me. My goal was, what can I say to you to stop with your limiting beliefs? And I will say that one thing that I loved, and won't get away from me because I want to talk about everybody else, was the pins. Because I had just gotten back from a conference where there was some funky things going on with the showers in the hotel, and a speaker, Billy Wagner, has been on this podcast before. He brought up a joke about that. But ultimately, when you go to these events, when you're someone who values speaking like I do, and you want so badly to be able to convey your message to inspire others, I took from that conference, wow, how cool is it that he thought of something in the moment and he was able to use that. And if the Lord didn't bless me in the same way, like, here's these pins, I'm sitting here beside a group of people, I'm like, one of the guys is using the pen, and I'm like, bro, how the heck do you get this pen to work? And because I was speaking on limiting beliefs, and here I am, like, I might be already conquered by a pen.
And so you own the audience from that point too, because you're able to connect it with something in real time. And so you just did such a great job.
I appreciate that.
Really talking about the limiting beliefs that we've talked about a lot on the podcast too, and just and outlining those things.
That's it. So going into the next speaker, Kendra Scott, because everybody knows me and they're ready for somebody else. And so that next speaker, Kendra Scott, amazing story, $500 in a dream into $1 billion plus company. I love that she says one thing, it was in a podcast or either on her speech, that she says to someone, every day I lead a company that's bigger than the day it was before. And man, what a thought is that? It's like, and if it's bigger, so you've got to change. But her involvement in the local community, her investment into her employees that are her team, to where she's created an environment where they want to work there. The fact that she's willing to hire people that are pregnant and to say, hey, we see who you are, not where you are. And we fully believe that the you we're getting is worth whatever you're going through. And not that pregnancy is a bad thing, but a lot of business will be like, oh, we're going to lose you for, maybe a year, 2 years, this, that, and the other. But she's like, hey, we want you. And I just think that the way she goes about her business is a testament to why her business is where it is today.
Yeah. And I think that really leaning into some of the things that she had experienced previously and some of the challenges that she had, and had that inform how she wanted to do her thing. And a lot of that of being able to support working mothers and providing an environment where that's not something that's a detriment at all. That's something to celebrate it. And being able to provide that environment to where you can do both and you can do those things, and there's not any kind of penalty or anything associated with that. And just being able to foster that environment. And I think it's a great example of providing support where it's needed, but also having that balanced with a lot of challenge as well.
Absolutely.
And setting that up in the right way for a company culture.
Absolutely. And a side note to all of our listening audience, I'm going to go ahead and say it again. Previous podcast, Betsy Beals, Ignite Transformational Living. She can cut this even in segments for you and your team. She has the DISC assessment profiles that we'll talk about a little bit later. But once again, if you're taking something from us, we're taking a very high level. Once again, this is a whole day event that we're trying to cut into 20 minutes. But what I want you to say is if something sparks your interest, that's our goal, because we want you to be able to connect with someone like Betsy who can actually take you or your team through these more in depth. And because it's worth it, in my opinion. So just wanted to take that moment and once again shout her out. Completely unpaid. She's not paying us to do this, but I think we both went into it bringing out more than we even thought we would. And it was incredible. Now, moving on kind of to the next as we're going through this was, if I'm not mistaken, Marcus Buckingham straight next to you. So this one, I did not expect what I got out of it. It literally blew my mind. When I'm going through my notes, and I think I took a photo of every slide. And I told myself, Jeremy, be so intentional that someone would be like, oh my gosh, I can't miss a slide. I can't miss a slide. Like, I was on the edge of my seat for his entire presentation. It blew my mind.
Yeah, and I love that. So we were talking before the podcast about that was both of our favorite sessions of the whole day. And it was really interesting. So the whole topic was love. And, we talk about love a lot.
Yeah.
So you love your staff. I love my staff. And we try to lead through that. But I think the big thing that we got out of the Marcus Buckingham's talk was it wasn't love in the traditional sense of like the lovey-dovey kind of stuff. It was more of, we all have to have things that we love that we're doing every day to get fulfillment out of what we're doing. But I really, the really cool and interesting thing for me with that was he was going through the statistics of it doesn't have to be everything. And I think that's something where we talk a lot about it, or we think that it's kind of an all or nothing kind of thing.
Yeah.
We either love everything or we don't.
Yeah.
And where the mind blowing thing for me was, it was like 20%. If 20% of the activities that we're doing, 20% of our job things, if we only love 20%, then the difference between just okay satisfaction and highest levels of satisfaction is just that threshold.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's not much at all.
100%.
But just the power of love.
Oh yeah,
like have that song going or something. But,
well, that's the one. My funny thing was, I was like, the only thing that I think he missed it on was he should have had that song. What's love got to do? Got to do with it. Yeah. I think that if he would have had that, like, and been like, oh, what does it have to do with it? Let me show you. What because that's what came up in my head. I was like, hey, if I had to give any constructive criticism, no, I'm just playing. I really couldn't give any. But you know what I loved about it is that how he pulled up this chart. And once again, go and invest in this stuff, or go listen to him talk. Go listen to this talk, because we don't want to ruin it for him. But he talked about all these different, it was this thing of a chart, and it had like how much a business is doing, their performance, and then it had population. And what it had was, it had all these different bubbles, a lot of dots everywhere, and saying, hey, well, these are how people are doing. But you had the same people with the same population size, where one's here at the bottom on performance, the other one's at the top. And he talked about how most business and organizations, they don't talk about the top. Because they call them outliers. Okay. They don't talk about those. They talk about the middle. They create a line for the median, and they say our goal is to get the people below to the median. But they don't spend time on the outlier, which is actually what he said, where you should spend all of your time.
Absolutely.
And that's where he got this theme of love, is that the biggest difference between the bottom and the top is the gap in love. Like, and so I just thought that was incredible, because so often we always think, well, let's just get to average. If the people that are below us, that they'll never be exceptional. So let's just get to average. And I just thought that was just incredible.
I really enjoyed it. And that was something that I see different presentations, and I listen to different podcasts. And a lot of times I get to, like, especially in the case of this one, it defines something that's been in my mind, but I hadn't been able to like really explain it. Kind of thing too. And he nailed it with the love. I mean, we have one of our core values is we love your life. And being able to have that articulated and have it be like data backing it up and all that kind of stuff too was a really cool moment for me. Cause like, man, this is always like, I don't know how to express it, but Marcus Buckingham just expressed that.
When he talked about healthcare, he talked about the handoff. He talked about, like when you're to this person, they hand you off to this person, they hand you off. Yeah. And he said 2 quotes that really meant a lot to me. Because Billy Wagner said this, and it's actually what we call it in our agency now. It's called, whenever we're working on a process, we don't call it a process, we call it designing outcomes.
Yeah.
Because I think that's such a beautiful way, because that is honestly, that is the essence of what it really is. But he said that we are all experience makers. I love that. We are all experience makers. And the other thing that he said was, we can design love in. Like, if you are trying to create you're an experience maker, you're designing an outcome, and how can you, when you're designing that outcome, put love in? Yeah. And so I just thought that was such and once again, we could easily get stuck on his all the time. So if you're okay with it, I think we'll go ahead and move on, because I mean, I could literally just do 3 episodes on that one. But go ahead if you have it in front of you. Who is the next speaker?
Then we move into Ryan Leak.
Okay.
And so if you've never heard Ryan Leak speak, it is definitely an experience. He brings the energy, and he's very entertaining. And he reminds me of someone in the studio. With how he talks and just incorporates comedy in, and just entertaining, but so much substance and energy that's brought.
Well, Daniel, I feel the same way about you. You're a great guy.
and so I really enjoyed Ryan's talk too, and just hearing some of his story about kind of his background, how he's growing up, and he's been successful in a lot of things, and it was all about like taking chances.
Yeah. There is equal risk in trying something new as there is in doing nothing at all.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, everything we do in leadership is risky. Get risky. And I'm like, dude, like, man, I mean, like, he's so right. The stagnant, like staying the same is just as risky because everyone else might be going above you.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's such a simple concept, but I think that speaks a lot to so what are the things that we're afraid of as a leader? And that I just really don't know if I want to do it. And so you like to always talk about a catchphrase called "Just Do It."
That's right.
And so
I'm still working on
it. And so those are the things where it's I think his whole presentation was just about like, all right, so you need to take action on things. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't work, what'd you learn?
I got this letter in the mail the other week, a lawyer telling me how much they really liked my Just Do It. They were,
I bet,
they wanted to like see me in a few weeks. I'm just playing, But no, you're absolutely right. And when he talks about it, he says like this is a concept. Once again, it's so simple, but yet no one talks about it. The more expensive the failure, the less likely you are to repeat it. And so it's like there's some little failures that you can handle. There's some big failures that they really set you back. But the thing is that you have to be willing to risk it. You know, I mean, it's he said fail as early as you can, but also as cheap as you can. Yeah. And I'm like, man, that's it, because it's so true. Because you go to these events, like we were in Chicago a few weeks ago, and I was telling another agency, and they're a part of this Scratch Agency podcast, as we were blessed to be a guest on their podcast, and it gets you really excited because you're like, man, like there's something beautiful about that. Like, dude, like you're double, if not triple our size now. And like, we want to be where you are. And I'm like, half the time I miss where you are. Yeah. Because there's something beautiful about being in that thing where it's like Play-Doh. And now if I'm trying to change something, I've got to impress a whole team that thinks that all I do is change things and that I'm just a shiny toy object kind of guy. I'm like, ooh, what can we do with this? And honestly, half the time they're right. You know what I mean? But it's like in this early stages, it really is Play-Doh that can be molded. Yeah. And I think that that's in any organization.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of it is change is inevitable on things, and you're going to have opportunities and things that you feel like you need to do or that you're nervous about. And I think the big takeaway with that is you can't avoid those things. And so being able to frame it as, I'm either going to take this chance or I'm not going to get any benefit about just remaining stagnant. And so always kind of looking forward. And if we're going to fail with something, we're failing forward with it to where it ends up not being a failure because we're going to learn. We won't make that mistake again, especially with when we make the expensive ones too. You're absolutely right. What happened to lead to this? We are not going down that road again.
That's right.
And so, but having the courage to be able to do that is
Absolutely.
a huge thing.
And I think the final thing for him that I would say is you're only failing if you're failing to learn. Ultimately, that's one of the biggest things I got from his talk is that if you are willing to invest in it, you're willing to take the wisdom from the experience, it's going to help you in every aspect of your life.
Yep. Yeah. So I think, and then we had John Maxwell come in again for his second half of his talk. And I think it was just a good way to cap up the day. And so with all those things, I think it was just a really good day. And I think for the three of us in this room, a lot of these things are things that we do naturally.
Yeah.
And
it's a blessing.
And that we don't even think about doing, and we're maybe aren't able to articulate them as eloquently as the speakers in those things, but those baseline thought processes are there and all that stuff. So it's a nice thing to go and hear about these things. And it's like, I really identify a lot with that.
100%. And to be a part of, to see the panel, and we won't dive into all that stuff because it was so much, but the panel, to be in a situation where two things, number one, just what you said, you are in a room where you're like, wow, maybe my idea, I'm not articulating it the same way, but I feel those feelings. Like this is what I want. And I'm hearing it from people who are accomplishing big things. And it gets me excited because guess what? We're on the same road. You might be 50 steps ahead of me, but at least I'm not going in the wrong direction. Okay. So there's that. And number two, you're putting yourself around local people that are inspired by the same things that inspire you. I walked away feeling so much better about our healthcare system, about our educational system, about a local church, some local church leaders, and ultimately just, in a nutshell, politics in general, like just because there are some people that we were able to meet from those realms that are fighting the good fight. And that was just a really awesome moment for me to say, hey, this isn't all something that's happening completely far away from here. Some of these people are right here fighting like we are in our own backyard. And that just inspired me to get to work.
Yeah. I think it was a really just a nice day for transformation and just really getting you fired up for doing good things.
That's it. Well, guys, we have absolutely enjoyed being a part of that, but ultimately bringing it back here to you. And so I would just ask you, if you're listening to this locally or you're listening to this wherever you take in Purpose Over Profits podcast or YouTube channel, I would just ask you, look for these type of events, invest in that local community around you, invest in people that are bringing that into your community, and just watch what happens whenever that Miracle Grow is part of what you're trying to bring to life. Thank you, guys.